There's something hauntingly powerful about a Sigma INFJ, a mind that can love you like you're the only person in the world and walk away like you never existed. It's not coldness, it's clarity. They feel emotions on a frequency most people can't even hear, yet when that energy turns one-sided or toxic, they detach with surgical precision. Because once a Sigma INFJ realizes that love without respect is self-destruction, their silence becomes their final language. You'll never see the switch happen. One day, they're all heart, empathy, and intuition, and the next, they're gone, not out of hate, but out of self-preservation. It's the moment they stop trying to be understood and start protecting their peace. That's when their depth becomes their armor, calm, unreadable, and untouchable. As if you've ever loved like that, with your entire soul, only to learn the hard way when to let go, this video is for you. Tell me in the comments, do you think loving deeply makes it harder or easier to detach when it's time to walk away? I'd love to know your answer. And if this message speaks to your mind and your heart, make sure you subscribe to Brainy One and turn on the bell, because this channel is for the rare ones who feel everything but refuse to be broken by it. The dual nature of the Sigma INFJ's heart. Inside a Sigma INFJ beats a paradox, a heart that feels everything yet refuses to be ruled by emotion. They love with precision, not impulse. When they give, it's never halfway. It's a soul-deep investment, a quiet devotion that carries the weight of understanding, intuition, and unspoken loyalty. To the Sigma INFJ, love isn't a casual experience, it's an energetic exchange, a merging of frequencies that either amplifies peace or drains it. And because they sense things others can't, they love not just for who you are, but for who you could be. That's what makes their affection so rare and their detachment so devastating. But here's what most people never see. That same depth of feeling becomes their survival mechanism. Their heart, trained by disappointment, learns balance like a sacred art. One part of them still believes in connection, while the other part watches from a distance, calculating whether the bond is mutual or merely convenient. They can be fully present with you, listening, understanding, giving, and yet a part of them remains untethered, observing the dynamic with surgical clarity. It's not manipulation, it's protection. The Sigma INFJ has been burned before, and now their intuition acts like armor. They know that empathy without discernment becomes self-destruction. So even as they pour out warmth and loyalty, they keep an invisible line between you and them. That line isn't drawn from ego, it's drawn from wisdom. They've learned that not every soul deserves full access to their inner world. The duality within them, heart and logic, emotion and analysis, allows them to give deeply without losing themselves completely. And when the balance tips, when their heart begins to sense that its energy is being misused or taken for granted, the detachment begins silently. No anger, no explosion, just a graceful retreat wrapped in calm. They don't need to announce it. You'll simply feel their absence, like a once bright warmth replaced by a haunting quiet. Because for a Sigma INFJ, love isn't about clinging, it's about flow. When the current no longer feels mutual, they don't fight the river, they become it, moving on with dignity, wisdom, and an unshakable understanding that peace will always be more valuable than presence. And love becomes emotional overexposure. For a Sigma INFJ, love often begins as a sacred act of trust, a silent decision to lower walls that were built through years of quiet observation and disappointment. But once they open their heart, they don't love in fragments, they love entirely. They listen between your words, anticipate your needs before you voice them, and feel your emotions as if they were their own. It's a love that transcends logic, a form of emotional telepathy that makes their partner feel seen in ways few ever do. Yet, beneath that compassion lies a dangerous truth. This depth, when unreciprocated or misunderstood, becomes emotional overexposure. You see, the Sigma INFJ doesn't just give love, they absorb. Every shift in tone, every inconsistency, every unspoken tension seeps into their consciousness. They begin to carry emotions that aren't theirs, anxiety that wasn't born in their chest, guilt they never earned, sadness that doesn't belong to them. It's not empathy anymore, it's erosion. The very heart that heals others begins to fracture under the weight of emotions they never asked to feel. And because Sigma INFJs rarely complain, the people around them never realize how much emotional labor is quietly taking place behind their calm eyes. This overexposure doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual fade from warmth to fatigue, from connection to quiet confusion. They'll start withdrawing subtly, not out of anger, but to breathe again, to find the edges of themselves beneath all the feelings they've absorbed. The world may call it detachment, but for them, it's survival. It's the only way to return to their emotional baseline, to remember where they end and others begin. When a Sigma INFJ reaches this point, their love doesn't die, it refines. They no longer see affection as endless sacrifice, but as sacred reciprocity. They learn that not everyone can handle the depth they bring, and that's okay, because love for them was never about control, it was about truth. And when that truth starts costing their peace, they choose silence. They step back, quietly reclaiming their energy, knowing that sometimes the most loving act is not holding on tighter, but letting go before the connection consumes them entirely. Reading souls before words are spoken. The Sigma INFJ doesn't listen to words, they read frequencies. They sense the pauses between sentences, the tremor behind laughter, the weight that sits silently in someone's eyes. Long before a person speaks their truth, the Sigma INFJ has already felt it. It's not magic, it's emotional intelligence sharpened by years of quiet observation. They study people the way others read novels, catching tone, energy, microexpressions, and emotional inconsistencies like plot twists in real time. You can lie to their ears, but you can't deceive their intuition. To them, truth has a vibration, and it always reveals itself in the smallest of details. This gift, though profound, often feels like a curse, because while others drift in the comfort of illusion, the Sigma INFJ walks through layers of unseen reality. They hear what's not said, see what's not shown, and feel what others bury. A simple conversation can feel like emotional archaeology, digging through defense mechanisms, unspoken pain, and hidden motives. It's why they often fall silent in crowds or grow distant in shallow company. They aren't antisocial, they're simply overwhelmed by the emotional noise that others don't even notice. And when they love someone, this ability becomes amplified. They can sense emotional withdrawal before it's acted upon, dishonesty before it's confessed, and pain before it's spoken. It's both a blessing and a burden because they can't unsee what's real. They notice when affection becomes performance. They feel when words are used to fill silence rather than express truth. And instead of confronting it with anger, they retreat inward, processing everything in silence, trying to make sense of emotions that aren't theirs to fix. What most people don't understand is that the Sigma INFJ doesn't analyze to judge. They observe to protect. Their awareness is their shield, a way to avoid being blindsided by betrayal or drained by emotional chaos. They may appear calm and composed, but inside their mind is constantly mapping emotional landscapes, detecting patterns, predicting reactions. It's how they survive in a world that often rewards pretense over authenticity. So when they say nothing, don't mistake it for ignorance. Their silence isn't lack of awareness, it's proof they already know. They just choose wisdom over confrontation, peace over chaos, and depth over empty words. Because for a Sigma INFJ, understanding someone's soul is easy. Deciding whether it's safe to stay connected to it is the real challenge. The moment they sense emotional imbalance. For the Sigma INFJ, imbalance doesn't need words. They feel it before it's visible. It's in the slight hesitation of someone's voice, the new edge in their tone, the subtle shift in energy when a room that once felt peaceful suddenly feels heavy. To most people, it's nothing, but to a Sigma INFJ, it's everything. Their intuition works like sonar. It detects emotional tension, hypocrisy, or internal conflict the moment it begins to vibrate beneath the surface. And once they sense that shift, something inside them changes too. Their energy retracts, their warmth cools, and their mind goes from connection to calculation. They don't react impulsively, they observe, they start replaying past interactions, looking for clues. When did the tone change? When did authenticity fade into performance? They'll stay quiet, polite, even kind, but their mind is already analyzing the imbalance like a puzzle, not because they want to control, but because they crave emotional truth. Disharmony makes them restless. It pulls them out of alignment. And since Sigma INFJs operate through energetic balance, they can't fake connection when something feels off. They'll withdraw, not as punishment, but as self-preservation. This moment of sensing imbalance is often invisible to others. They might still smile, still engage, but internally, a door has started to close. It's the silent transition from openness to observation, from trust to testing. They'll give you space to correct the energy, to be honest again. But if the imbalance persists, their silence becomes the message, because Sigma INFJs know that emotional dishonesty spreads like poison, and they won't let it infect their peace. They've spent too many years being drained by people who refuse to take responsibility for their emotional instability. So now, when they feel that shift, that weight of something unspoken, they don't argue, they don't explain. They simply step back and let the imbalance reveal its source, because truth always surfaces when silence enters the room. And while others scramble to maintain appearances, the Sigma INFJ quietly returns to stillness, choosing equilibrium over attachment, clarity over chaos. That's their power. They don't chase harmony, they become it by removing themselves from anything that disturbs it. Silent withdrawal, love without announcement. When a Sigma INFJ withdraws, it's never dramatic. There are no slammed doors, no angry messages, no grand exits meant to make a point. Their silence is quieter than loss itself, a calm, invisible tide that pulls back without warning. One day you feel their warmth woven through your life, and the next, you realize the air has changed. They still smile, but the smile no longer lands in the same place. They still listen, but the listening has no emotional weight behind it. It's not revenge, it's self-preservation. To love as a Sigma INFJ is to give attention as currency, energy as devotion, and presence as proof. But when that energy stops being respected or reciprocated, they don't negotiate for it. They simply start to reclaim it. Their love doesn't fade. It folds inward, redirecting the compassion they once gave outward back toward their own soul. They'll still wish you peace, still hope you find your way, but they'll no longer offer themselves as your compass. What looks like indifference is actually healing, a quiet recalibration of their emotional system after too much imbalance. This silent withdrawal confuses people. It feels sudden, but it isn't. It's the result of 1,000 small disappointments, absorbed with grace until the weight becomes too much to hold. The Sigma INFJ never leaves out of anger. They leave once they've realized that staying costs them their essence. Their detachment is gentle but irreversible, a sacred goodbye that needs no words. They won't defend themselves or demand closure, because closure for them comes in the form of clarity, knowing they showed up fully and loved authentically, even when it wasn't returned. To the untrained eye, it might seem cold, but in truth, it's one of the most loving acts a Sigma INFJ can make, to choose peace over persuasion, solitude over misunderstanding. Their departure isn't about punishment, it's about realignment. They walk away quietly so both souls can return to their natural rhythm, yours free to evolve without their constant empathy, and theirs finally free from the exhaustion of overgiving. And once they cross that emotional threshold, they rarely look back. Because for the Sigma INFJ, love isn't about possession, it's about truth. And once the truth turns painful, silence becomes their final act of love. Detachment as a form of emotional intelligence. For the Sigma INFJ, detachment isn't a lack of feeling, it's mastery over it. It's the quiet realization that not every emotion deserves an audience, not every person deserves access, and not every battle deserves participation. They've learned through experience that being deeply feeling doesn't mean being endlessly available. So they evolve from emotional responders to emotional architects. They no longer drown in empathy, they navigate it. Their detachment is not coldness, it's calibration, the ability to feel without being consumed. They understand that true intelligence isn't about knowing everything. It's about knowing when to let things pass through you instead of holding on to them. The Sigma INFJ feels everything intensely, but they've trained themselves to pause before reacting, to interpret emotions as information rather than identity. That's why they seem calm even when others are falling apart. It's not because they don't care, but because they've seen how chaos feeds on attention. By staying detached, they protect both their energy and their clarity. This kind of detachment is misunderstood. People call them distant, unbothered, mysterious, but they're simply disciplined. They've learned that emotional intelligence is not the same as emotional exposure. They can care deeply without collapsing into other people's pain. They can offer empathy without losing self-respect. Their detachment is their boundary, invisible yet absolute, built from years of being drained by those who mistook kindness for permission. When conflict arises, they don't react, they observe. They watch patterns, not excuses. They know who they're dealing with before deciding how to respond. This level of control unsettles manipulators and confuses the emotionally immature because the Sigma INFJ doesn't give them what they expect: emotional chaos. Instead, they give them silence, composure, and logic. It's a language few can argue with. At its core, this detachment is power, the power to remain centered no matter how much turbulence surrounds them. It's the art of staying soft-hearted, but steel-minded. They feel everything, but they don't let everything move them, because the Sigma INFJ knows emotions are waves, not commands. And those who can stand still within the storm aren't emotionless, they're evolved. Healing through observation, not reaction. For the Sigma INFJ, healing doesn't come from loud declarations or dramatic breakthroughs. It comes from quiet observation. They don't scream their pain into the void or seek validation for their suffering. Instead, they step back and watch. They observe their own emotions as if studying weather patterns, noticing how certain people trigger storms and others bring calm. This isn't detachment from life, it's conscious participation. They've learned that reacting too quickly traps them in cycles of repetition, but observing allows them to evolve. When they're hurt, they don't immediately fight back or try to make others understand. They retreat into silence, not to hide, but to process. Their solitude becomes a sacred laboratory where emotion meets reflection. They break down their pain piece by piece, tracing every feeling back to its origin. Was this pain caused by betrayal, expectation, or misunderstanding? Once they find the source, they don't just heal the wound, they rewire the entire emotional response around it. That's what makes their healing so permanent. While others rush to move on, the Sigma INFJ studies the lesson. They ask, why did I attract this energy? What was I meant to learn? This isn't self-blame, it's self-awareness. They understand that growth requires accountability, not punishment. So they face their shadow without judgment, extracting wisdom from every scar. Their ability to analyze pain without letting it define them is what sets them apart. This method of healing through observation also reshapes how they deal with others. They no longer rush to correct, prove, or defend. They know that energy speaks louder than words, and silence reveals more than confrontation ever could. They've realized that life continuously mirrors back what's unresolved within them, so they watch the mirror instead of breaking it. This awareness becomes their greatest strength, a calm intelligence that turns every wound into wisdom. And in that stillness, something extraordinary happens. They stop chasing closure from others and start creating it for themselves. The pain that once demanded attention now becomes insight, quiet, grounded, and transformative. Because for the Sigma INFJ, healing isn't about forgetting the past, it's about seeing it clearly enough that it loses its power. Observation, not reaction. That's how they turn suffering into serenity, transforming pain into purpose. For the Sigma INFJ, pain is never wasted. Every heartbreak, betrayal, and moment of isolation becomes raw material for transformation. They don't suppress their pain or run from it. They study it, dissect it, and ask what it's trying to teach them. To them, pain isn't punishment. It's a profound signal from the soul pointing toward growth that can't happen any other way. Where others see endings, the Sigma INFJ sees blueprints, designs for a stronger, wiser, more self-aware version of themselves. When the world wounds them, they don't seek revenge, they seek meaning. That's what makes them unstoppable. Their pain doesn't break them, it refines their character. They turn every emotional fracture into a passageway for insight. Their solitude becomes the forge where chaos is melted down and reshaped into something beautiful. Resilience, depth, purpose. They know that the heart only expands when it's stretched by experience, and their strength lies in their ability to turn suffering into understanding. The process is alchemical. They take the darkness that once consumed them and transmute it into light that guides others. Many Sigma INFJs end up helping people through the very struggles that nearly destroyed them. They channel pain into art, wisdom, empathy, or creation. They no longer identify as victims, they become architects of transformation. And while others may crumble under life's pressure, the Sigma INFJ rises not by denying pain, but by integrating it. This transformation changes how they see everything. They stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin asking, "What is this here to teach me?" That single shift in mindset turns wounds into wisdom and scars into stories of survival. They realize that their pain was never random. It was the universe's way of carving depth into their soul. So when others look at the Sigma INFJ and wonder how they remain calm after chaos, it's because they've already walked through the fire and found gold on the other side. They've learned to let pain polish them instead of poison them. For them, the ultimate victory is not avoiding hurt, it's mastering it. Because once pain becomes purpose, nothing in life can defeat them. It can only shape them. The piece that replaces attachment. For the Sigma INFJ, there comes a quiet moment when the chase ends, when the need to be understood, loved, or validated finally dissolves into peace. It's not a peace born from apathy, but from awakening. They realize that attachment was never love. It was fear dressed as connection. Fear of loss, of being unseen, of not being enough. And once they face that fear directly, it loses its power. What replaces it is an unshakable calm, a peace so steady, it no longer depends on who stays or who leaves. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It begins with heartbreak, the kind that forces them to meet their own emptiness without distraction. They sit in silence long enough to notice how much energy they've given to people who never earned it, how much of their identity was built around keeping others comfortable. Slowly, they stop chasing closure, stop proving their worth, stop fighting to be understood. Instead, they choose stillness. They learn that letting go doesn't mean losing, it means making room for peace. The Sigma INFJ begins to view relationships differently. Love no longer feels like attachment, it feels like freedom. They can care deeply without clinging, listen without absorbing, and give without expecting. Their peace becomes magnetic, the kind of energy that draws people in without effort. It's the paradox of true detachment. The less they need from others, the more powerful their presence becomes. People who once tried to manipulate them now find no leverage. Arguments lose their hooks. Emotional chaos bounces off their serenity. This peace is not passive, it's protective, a silent boundary that guards their emotional landscape. The Sigma INFJ no longer reacts to drama. They outgrow it. They understand that everything meant for them will align naturally, without force. And this is where they truly evolve from being defined by connection to being defined by alignment. Their relationships become conscious choices, not emotional compulsions. They no longer need constant reassurance because they've learned to generate their own calm. The peace they find after detachment isn't empty, it's full of clarity, self-respect, and quiet strength. In that peace, they stop needing to hold on. They simply allow. And that's when they discover that real power isn't control, it's surrender. Loving without losing themselves. For the Sigma INFJ, love used to mean dissolving into another person, feeling their emotions as if they were their own, carrying their pain like a silent duty. They loved deeply, but often at the cost of themselves. They mistook self-sacrifice for devotion, empathy for obligation. But after walking through heartbreak and awakening through solitude, they learned the rarest form of love, one that flows freely, yet stays rooted in self-respect. Loving without losing themselves becomes their quiet superpower. This evolution begins when they realize that love isn't about merging, it's about mirroring. It's not about saving someone, but about seeing them. The Sigma INFJ starts to recognize that genuine love doesn't demand they shrink or silence their intuition. It thrives in mutual growth where both souls remain whole and sovereign. They no longer confuse chaos for chemistry or neediness for passion. They've tasted the emptiness that comes from overgiving, and now they guard their peace like oxygen. When they love now, it's intentional. They choose people who speak the same emotional language, who value depth over distraction. They love in full presence, but they never abandon themselves to do so. Their boundaries are quiet but firm, their affection real but measured. They understand that love without self-connection becomes dependency, and dependency, no matter how tender it feels, is still a cage. Their love matures into a state of balance, warm but steady, passionate but peaceful. They can give without depleting, listen without absorbing, and support without rescuing. To the outside world, it might seem like they've grown colder, but in truth, they've grown wiser. Their love no longer burns to prove its worth, it glows calmly, knowing its value. And when they walk away from someone now, it's never out of spite, it's out of alignment. They know love that requires them to abandon themselves is not love at all. It's emotional erosion. So they keep their heart open, but their soul anchored. They love with discernment, compassion, and clarity, an unbreakable combination. Because the Sigma INFJ finally understands real love expands you, not erases you. And the moment they learn to love without losing themselves, they didn't just protect their heart, they mastered it. At the end of the day, the Sigma INFJ doesn't just feel love, they elevate it. They've learned that the purest connection isn't about possession or constant reassurance. It's about two complete souls choosing each other without fear. That balance between depth and detachment, emotion and intelligence is what makes their love unlike any other. They no longer chase, they attract. They no longer lose themselves, they lead with presence. If you've ever been that kind of soul, the one who feels everything but refuses to drown in it, this message was for you. You're not too much. You're just finally becoming everything you were meant to be. If this spoke to you, drop a comment and tell me. Do you think true love means holding on or knowing when to let go? Don't forget to subscribe to Brain One for more deep soul-level psychology about INFJs, Sigma personalities, and the emotional strength that comes with self-awareness. Your growth is your greatest power, and it starts right here.